Hi, this is Peter McLaughlin with BlueSky Hypnosis, and welcome to the Friday Live at 5. Today I've got a new set here. It's actually a green screen. It arrived today, which the backstory is something happened in my office today and the internet went down, and so I needed to come home and do this. So the green screen arrived just in time to make it look like I have this brick background here. It's not really a brick background, it's a green screen. So if you see anything weird about it, you'll understand why. Anyway, welcome once again to this Friday Live at 5. Today we're talking about help, why can't I lose weight? It's a question that you hear from people, or at least I hear from people all the time. I'm sure you've heard it from your friends, maybe you've said it yourself, that people have tried all different kinds of diet and exercise and weight loss pills, and they've gotten angry and they've gotten frustrated and they felt like they were on the right track only to fall all the way back to the beginning. And so today is really dedicated towards beginning to answer that question, giving you some different ideas of things you can consider when it comes to that question of why can't you lose weight. I'm sure that it has affected people that are on this broadcast today. I'm sure it's affected your friends, your family, and so forth. So my standard thing that I love to say at the beginning of every one of these broadcasts is I encourage you to ask questions. I encourage you to make comments. It makes the broadcast way more interesting. It makes it more of a conversation. It makes it more dynamic if you are participating in this by, typing away and asking questions that I might be able to answer for you, or at least making comments, sharing your experiences. Other people definitely benefit by hearing what you have to say. Also, if you have ideas about future broadcasts, please feel free to include those. Please feel free to send them to me either now or send them to me later, because many of those I actually do incorporate into this broadcast on Friday Live at 5. I am wanting to do content every Friday, and so it helps if you can give me some ideas of what you'd like to see. So it's true, I think, that simple diet and exercise plans don't really long-term solve this problem. And the problem that we're having just is getting literally and figuratively bigger and bigger as the years go by. And I would think that this whole issue over the last 4 or 5 months with lockdowns and whatnot have only made the problem worse. They've only exacerbated problems. So I'm kind of getting up there in age, and I can remember when I was in grade school that in a class of 25 kids, there might be one kid in the class that was heavy. And I think that has really changed over time. I mean, it's super shocking to hear the statistics, like 2/3 of Americans are either obese or significantly overweight. And the obese numbers keep climbing over and over again, and all the health issues that go along with it are absolutely staggering. So obviously, simple diet and exercise is not really working. I mean, it's a huge industry. I don't know if it's multi-billion dollars, but it's a massive industry. And people often will succeed for a period of time, and then they'll find that they slide back to the old way of being. And maybe some of you folks who've been on these broadcasts before have heard me say when I was talking about weight, that I think of a stool. Like, I think diet and exercise are 2 legs of a 3-legged stool. And obviously you need every leg in order to have the stool support a person sitting on it. But 2 legs is just not going to work, and it falls over and again. And what I mean by those 2 legs, of course, is diet, calories, how many calories are coming in. The really good diet programs, I think, are also concerned not just with calories, but where are those calories coming from? What kind of food, what kind of nutrition is coming in? And then the second leg of the stool is calories out. Okay, so what's the third leg of the stool? The third leg of the stool is your mind. The third leg of the stool is specifically your subconscious mind. This is where terms like emotional eating comes from. Obviously, people are eating for reasons that go way beyond the need to sustain their life. They're eating, we know, because we have that phrase, emotionally. That people are eating foods that we have come to call comfort food, which is again implying emotions. So this broadcast, this Friday Live at 5 is really focused on the subconscious mind. I'm a hypnotist and a life coach, so it makes sense that I would be talking about that. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of the obstacles that some of my clients have run into over the years and some of the ways that we've helped them overcome those obstacles so that they can lose weight and lose it permanently and get back to a really healthy way of being. So that third leg of the stool is emotional. It is mental. You know, think of your subconscious mind as being the computer software that runs the hardware of your body. And you know that if you want to change something about the hardware of your computer, it doesn't really make sense to start banging away on the computer. You really need to get behind the scenes, if you will, and get into the software code and rewrite that code. And when you rewrite the code, the same keystroke is now going to produce, or series of keystrokes, is now going to produce a different outcome. That's literally what we want for you. We want your mind to be working in such a way that when you walk past the baked goods, when you walked past the candy, it just doesn't have the same pull. It doesn't have the same allure for you. In other words, you're not feeling that overpowering urge to go and engage in something that your conscious mind knows that you don't want to do. And you don't have to just exert willpower all the time, that you actually have your subconscious mind working for you. So I just want to dive in here and see if there are some comments kind of right away that we might be able to begin answering, questions we can answer or comments that we can address. All right, so here is Angel Shining, DJL, Anthony Reed. Definitely different foods have different outcomes. Glad you said it. Yeah, cool. And it looks, Anthony, like you are a hypnotherapist. Awesome, welcome here. I'm glad you're here. And then Angel Shining, which I thought I was pulling up there. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, too much cortisol and nighttime high sugars. Basically too much stress, too many carbs. Angel, 100% agree with you. So the more you enter a stressful state, and I've talked about this in some of the previous broadcasts, you are now moving from the parasympathetic mode of your autonomic nervous system. That's your rest and digest mode, and you only have two modes, it's one or the other, into the sympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system. That's your fight or flight. That's what we call stress. And as you move into that stress response, as you point out quite correctly, you're dumping both adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream. The cortisol is telling your body, hold onto all available fat. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism that probably helped our ancestors get through very, very lean winters. You know, when there was a famine, or when there was a really difficult winter, or when the main breadwinner died, or when there was a war, or when the crops all were destroyed, or the livestock were stolen. That moving into a stress response, telling the body, hold on to all available fat, that's what probably caused our ancestors to make it through difficult times and allowed us to be here now. However, now when you watch the news, and if it bleeds, it leads, is going to cause you to go into a stress response, cortisol into your bloodstream. Here's another really insidious way that cortisol is working against you, is that if you get out of the shower and you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, you don't like the way your body looks, and you get disgusted with yourself, and you say nasty things about yourself, you're gonna move into a stress response. You're gonna dump that adrenaline and cortisol into your bloodstream, and that's gonna make things so much harder for you. And then the second part of your excellent comment, I gotta give you a little triangle sound here since I have the ability to do that. The second part of that comment, the actual feelings of stress. Nobody wants to feel stressed. That's where emotional eating comes in. That's where comfort food comes in. That's where we start reaching for, you know, the candy bar or the chips. Because while we're eating those things, we are sort of self-soothing. We're doing the opposite of feeling that stress. So excellent point, and I'm really glad that you made it. Thanks for contributing that. Another way of talking about this issue is, strangely, to think in terms of economics, supply and demand. So when it comes to something like, say, the drug problem or the war on drugs, which we have been fighting in this futile fashion for a long, long time, we have basically been going after the supply, with this notion that if we just don't have drugs in the society, if we don't have them in the country, if they don't make it past the borders, then we're not going to have a drug abuse problem. But it totally ignores the other side of the economic equation, which is the demand curve. So if there's no demand, it doesn't matter how much supply you have. You know, the people, the only thing that can come into my mind is, you know, what your cat puts in the cat box. You know, people aren't fighting each other, shooting each other, paying exorbitant amounts of money to acquire those little nuggets that go into the cat box because there's no demand for them. So in this thing with food, with being overweight, with finding out exactly what it is and why you can't lose weight, I say we want to deal with the demand part of the problem. What is driving your need to eat emotionally? What is driving your need to eat comfort foods? That's what I'm really interested in. And if we can solve that part of the problem, or if we can just reduce the demand part of the problem, then you're not going to have that intense urge when you walk past the table with all the pastries on it. It's just not going to look as appealing for you because it's not doing the same thing for you that it was doing before. Let's see what else we have here. Oh yeah, okay, so Angel Shining talks about comfort food boosts serotonin. It's why we get addicted. I'm going to say, yeah, that's one of the reasons why we get addicted. It boosts serotonin. Fine, I buy that. It also distracts you from that need. If you are a teetotaler, if you believe alcohol is the worst thing in the world to drink, and for whatever reason, just go with me. You're in the wilderness and you've got a backpack on and you've got a fifth of whiskey in that backpack in a bottle. And you fall down and you break your leg and you're in intense pain and there's nobody with you, you can't get out of the woods. I'm going to guarantee you, you're going to drink from that whiskey bottle because it's going to give you temporary relief from that underlying pain. And this gets to your point about stress. So whatever is causing you stress, whatever is causing you, in whatever form, it could be sadness, it could be boredom, it could be anxiety, it could be all sorts of things. If we're able to reduce that or reduce it significantly, then the demand part is not going to be there. So, good point. Kay Robinson, I don't know what you're saying here, but I'm just going to dive in and read it. I am just like you said. I lost almost 70 pounds 3 years ago and have started gaining it back. I am having a terrible time stopping the slide and I'm getting scared. Okay, gotcha. So first of all, I would say that getting scared part, which is totally human, totally normal, is going to add to the problem, right? It's going to cause you to move into that stress response. What we would need to understand, getting back to this why can't I lose weight, is what is the origin of all of this? Where was this all created in the first place of being significantly overweight? What I want to say is, and I want to pull this, this screen down. Sometimes I forget to do this. That one down, that one up. Some of the regulars, maybe Kay, you've seen this one before. This picture of a knight in armor. What I'm putting this up here for is to illustrate the fact that your subconscious mind, the role of your subconscious mind, the job of your subconscious mind is to protect you. That's the idea of the armor, to protect you. So if your subconscious mind is driving you towards something that your conscious mind doesn't want, so Kay, in your case, you said that you lost 70 pounds, which is a substantial amount of weight, and now you're starting to gain it back. It could be that your subconscious mind actually believes that you are safer with additional weight on your body. So why would that be? Why would the weight sort of be acting or behaving like steel plate armor on a knight in the Middle Ages? Well, and I'm not saying this pertains to you because I don't really know you at all. But a person who was, let's say, abused, maybe sexually abused in the past, their subconscious mind may get the idea that if I'm carrying around extra weight, I have a physical barrier between me and a would-be attacker. The subconscious mind may get the idea that if I have all of this extra physical weight, I may not be attractive and a would-be attacker may leave me alone. There are other reasons why the subconscious mind may feel that it's safer for a person to have this extra weight, and we'll get into this in a little while, but I'd like you to think about this idea that your subconscious mind, your urges, this deeper part of you is not actually sabotaging you, even though it feels that way. It is doing what it thinks it needs to do in order to protect you. So I was working with a client earlier today, online, which is the only thing we're doing over the last 4 months. And she told me about having a number of really bad relationships. Some of them involved marriage and divorce, and some didn't, but they were bad. In all of the ways you can imagine that kind of relationship going bad. And she has gained a substantial amount of weight since the last one ended a number of years ago. Now, today was our first session, so I don't know for sure, but I have a very strong suspicion of exactly what's going on, which is her subconscious mind is putting on the weight so that she won't get into another relationship, because each time this happens, it causes her tremendous pain. Financial pain, emotional pain, and in some cases physical pain. And to go down that road again, you could see how to the subconscious mind that would be much worse than creating the kind of discomfort, emotional discomfort, physical discomfort that goes along with having additional weight. So assuming that this hypothesis is correct, as we continue to work together, we're going to have to get to this point where we're able to help her subconscious mind understand that she is no longer in danger of having that experience, of having that awful relationship. But in order to do that, we have to solve the problem of why was she having all of these difficult relationships in the first place? Now, again, we just started working today, so I'm not that far into it. I don't really know for sure, but what I suspect is that there are and have been low self-esteem feelings, low self-worth, low self-love. And so she's essentially, if this is a scale, high to low, she's been thinking about herself, believing about herself at this deep level of subconscious programming, back to that idea of the computer software, at this low level. And so what is she attracted into her life? What is she selected? Are relationships that conform to that low level. And what is produced by that? All kinds of pain. Financial, emotional, physical, and so forth. So in order to solve this problem, what I'm thinking is we have to raise up that self-worth, that self-love, so that the relationships she attracts into her life and that she chooses for herself going forward are coming in at a higher level that don't involve all of those old kinds of pain. Then the subconscious mind can say, you're no longer in the danger you were before of this stuff. I can stand down. You can take off the armor. So again, it's just the first session. It's hard to say for sure, but that's my hypothesis going into this after talking with her for 90 minutes and understanding her life much better. So I hope that is kind of making sense to you about the subconscious mind is not trying to sabotage you. Even if it feels that way, it's working with you. And if you can understand that, it's easier not to get so angry at yourself or not to get so angry at that part of you, because you're not calling it sabotage anymore, you're calling it protection. But it's almost like an attack dog, like a loving pet that leaps up when the postman, or postwoman knocks on your door to get you to sign for a letter or something, and the dog goes berserk. Now, you and I know that letter carrier doesn't pose a danger to you, but the dog doesn't. And because the dog loves you, he or she is trying to protect you. So we don't really get mad at the dog. We know it's trying to protect us. So this is a huge, huge, huge piece. I feel like if it's the only thing you take away from today, please take away this notion that your subconscious mind is trying to protect you like a loving pet. It just doesn't understand that perhaps, and maybe not in all cases, but perhaps the conditions that created the danger have now passed. So with this client that I talked to today, presumably the danger hasn't passed. It may be the weight has actually protected her from having another relationship like that. And doesn't it make sense that we would want to first fix or heal or resolve the conditions that led to these difficult relationships? We want to raise that level first, and then we want to deal with the weight. That's how I see that anyway, and I hope this all makes sense to you. So a lot of questions and comments coming in. I wanted to see what we got at this point. Let's see. I'm just going to jump into this one. I'm not reading it all, but we'll see what it says. Paulette Soulier. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Paulette. Since 2015, I have lost 170 pounds. Wow. Congratulations. I still need to lose 60 more pounds, but they just won't go away. I'm doing something subconsciously not to lose it. Subconsciously not to lose it, or is my body trying to do catch up? All right, so I'm going to make some assumptions here. And first of all, I mentioned before, I'm a life coach and I'm a hypnotist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a psychologist. So let's just get that all out of the way. Take all of my advice with a huge grain of salt. The things that I say, consult your medical professional in your life and so forth about important issues like weight loss and weight gain. So Paulette, that's a huge amount of weight, colossal. So congratulations on the 170 pounds. The remaining 60, I'm going to make the assumption that by losing the remaining 60, you're still going to be within healthy body mass indices, that for your height, that even taking off another 60 pounds, you're still going to be at a really healthy place and you're not going to be underweight. Okay, so yes, in my experience, the plateau just means there's something beneath that plateau that your subconscious mind is not willing to go there. Obviously, it was willing to have you drop the 170, but it's not willing to let you drop even another 10, it sounds like. So there has got to be some aspect of your subconscious mind that is saying, essentially, look at the armor. It's not safe for me to drop any more weight. It was safe for me to get to this point, but it's not safe for me to go any further. So it would be really important to figure out, A, is what I'm saying correct? And B, if what I'm saying is correct, where in the past was this paradigm created for the first time? In other words, where was the software code written that it's not safe for me to be less than X number of pounds? Now, for those of you who followed my channel for a while, and for those of you who have followed these lives, you understand that in my toolkit, if you will, in my bag of resources, I say that your existence didn't begin when your parents conceived you or the moment you were born. I say your existence will not end the moment that your heart stops beating and you stop having brain waves. That your physical body is a vehicle that allows you to have an experience in this lifetime that you couldn't have without this physical body, without this vehicle. Just like getting into your car or your pickup truck allows you to have experiences in that vehicle that you can't have just walking around. So, the origin of whatever the fear is that your subconscious mind is holding on to, or whatever the reason is your subconscious mind is holding on to this, could be earlier in your present life, so a trauma that happened in your past or something that you perceived as a trauma, or it could be something that occurred in a past lifetime. Now, one of the ways that, Paulette, you can check into this, and anyone else that's listening to this broadcast can check into this, is go on to my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, look up the video, pendulum, that's P-E-N-D-U-L-U-M, pendulum, and that video will teach you how to use or utilize a pendulum to ask questions from which you will receive yes, no answers. Those yes, no answers are coming from your deeper subconscious mind through your nervous system. The pendulum is going to move one particular way for yes and another way for no. It teaches you how to do all of this, how to set all that up. Once you have that pendulum calibrated, ask the question, do I have a subconscious fear regarding losing the additional weight? If you get a yes to that, ask, was this fear created for the first time earlier in my present life? That may be a yes, it may be a no. Let's say it's a no. Ask, was this fear created for the first time in a past life? Use this method to really hone in on where that fear was created, and that will help you understand what you need to do now to resolve it. And so I'll just kind of jump ahead to part of what I was going to do at the end of this broadcast today, which is how do I resolve this? And I'm going to talk about part of it now because we're into the meat of getting to the root of where this paradigm was created, where this software code was written for the first time, where the subconscious mind says it's not safe to go below a certain weight. Let's say you use the pendulum, you isolate this to, it happened when I was 6 years old. If you can't remember what it was, or maybe you think you can remember what it was, which is my parents got divorced. So ask the question, is it when my parents got divorced? Keep asking questions until you get a hit. Once you know what it is, now you're my gosh, 75% of the way there. You know what the problem is, where it resides. So now you would want to do something, well, if we were working together, we would do a hypnotic regression. So in your mind, in hypnosis, we would take you back to that moment in time. And we would essentially have your adult self rescue your 6-year-old self. You know, take her in your arms, tell her she's safe, tell her she's loved, tell her that her parents' divorce has nothing to do with her. And help her heal. Once she's healed, we'd want to integrate her with you. Have the two of you become one. And essentially put that old trauma, that old sadness, that old reason why your subconscious mind is preventing you from losing the additional weight, put it to rest, neutralize it. So I know it's sort of complicated, but I hope you guys are starting to get this, the overall concepts. That's the main goal today. And use that pendulum video to start asking these questions about why is this happening in the first place? Because once you get the answer to that, you'll be way down the road towards solving the problem. All right, let's see what Gia Girl says. Gia Girl says, I've lost and gained weight starting at 14 years of age. It has never, ever, ever stopped. The last time was 2015 with my low iron and lack of an appetite. Now, years later, the same cycle. Okay, so obviously the first thing, and it sounds like you've probably done it, which would be to investigate this through your MD, through your doctor. You know, check with them, find out what's going on there. The second thing I would want to know if we were working together is what traumas have you suffered in this lifetime? And how those traumas might be related to this cycle. But the first thing to check out obviously would be physiological. Is there something going on with your endocrine system, you know, with the release of hormones into your body? If that's the case, you know, your doctor might be able to help you regulate the flow of those hormones, and maybe that weight up and down could be brought into line. If your MD isn't helping you, you could always look into a functional MD or into a naturopath. Those professionals have a much larger toolkit that they can use to help with these things. That's something that sounds like I would definitely want you to take a look at that. And then on the psychological side, on the emotional psychological side, I would have to understand from you, when you're going through these cycles, do you find yourself like binge eating when you're gaining the weight? How do you view yourself? What's going on with your self-esteem, your self-worth, the levels of self-love? What is the inner critic in your mind saying? And what do we need to do to get all of those things in line? So those are some additional thoughts that I have in addition to what I said earlier, which is, when did this all begin? In other words, not just what year did it begin, but what incident occurred that kicked off this whole thing? And is there anything that relates into a past lifetime? Because there could be a trauma in a past lifetime that you have no conscious memory of, yet might be influencing your experience in this lifetime. So thanks a lot for posing that comment. AW. Here we go. Anita, how are you? Let's give you a triangle. My parents and grandparents would cook good hearty meals, particularly in the winter, to ward off colds, flu, and to build themselves up. Okay, so I am assuming that cooking these good hearty meals might be related to weight, or maybe it's related to the anecdote that I told you before, talked about before, regarding cortisol, the role of cortisol, putting on extra weight to get you through a difficult winter. Might be something like that, like sort of old-fashioned wisdom. Might be. I can say, based on how long I've been alive, that, as I mentioned before, that the weight issue seems to be getting worse and worse and worse over time. I would argue that in general, people in the culture are way more stressed out now in 2020, well, certainly than they were in 2019 because of obvious reasons. But in general, in the 2000s, I think people have been way more stressed out than they were, say, in the 1980s. and probably way more than they were in the 1960s. You know, life in many respects has just gotten faster. Technology was supposed to free us, and really it's just kind of chained us. You know, people, when they left the office before, they were off, they were on their own time. And now, you know, many companies expect people to answer a text or to answer an email or to do work when they're traveling or when they're not otherwise in the office. 2 parents working instead of 1. The destruction of labor unions and, you know, kind of guaranteed retirement. You know, if you work 20, 25, 30 years, you get this really great retirement. Largely that's gone away. And I think that these things have put a lot more pressure on people. And that pressure, that additional stress, is one of the factors, I said one of the factors, which is driving the increase in the weight of people and making it harder for them to lose weight. So thanks for that, Anita. Okay, I'm just scrolling down here, and Legal Eagle. Boom. Holding on to this weight excuses me from being at my absolute best. I can conveniently blame it on the extra weight. Fantastic. Perfect example of the subconscious mind doing something for you. It's protecting you from doing something you would otherwise feel compelled to do that for whatever reason you feel like you don't want to do. It doesn't feel comfortable for you. And so yeah, the extra weight is delivering to you, and I'm so glad you said this, because it's getting me thinking about this other concept, which is, and Anthony Reed will resonate with this as a fellow hypnotist, the secondary gain or a negative payoff. So, quick example: you've got somebody who's smoking cigarettes. They don't want to be smoking cigarettes anymore. You want to try to help them, and what you find out is that they hate their job, and that 4 times a day they leave their desk and they walk outside and they stand in a small gaggle of other smokers, 4 or 5 other people with whom they've become very, very, very friendly, and they smoke their cigarettes. Well, if you take the cigarettes away from this hypothetical client, what are you doing? You're taking away the ability of that person to take 4 breaks a day away from a job that they hate, where they get to connect with like-minded souls with whom they feel an emotional connection. I'm telling you right now, that is probably going to be more important to them than just taking away the cigarettes, where maybe the negative health effects are years in the future. At least that's their perception of it. And so the negative payoff, or the secondary gain, Legal Eagle, from what you talked about, is that it protects you, the weight protects you from having to be your best. Now, what might that mean? Does it mean working more hours? Does it mean taking a promotion where you might have more responsibility, and maybe you'd be responsible for other people? Maybe you'd have to give public talks and you don't want to do that. Maybe if a project didn't work out, you'd take more of the heat for that. These are all examples, and so glad you brought this up, of how weight might be providing a secondary gain or a negative payoff. And this goes for weight issues. It goes, as I said, for smoking. It goes for all sorts of things. It's something else you could use the pendulum for. Again, kind of a variation of that question is the additional weight serving me? Is it trying to protect me or help me in some way? And if the answer you get to that is a yes, that gets really interesting really fast, and you can begin digging down into that to find out more details about it. How is it doing it? How is it serving you? How is it protecting you? Because once you understand that, then you can move into the phase of re-educating the subconscious mind that you are now safe to move past all that weight because you've dealt with these other issues. So if your fear was, oh my God, if I get this promotion, I'm going to have to, address the board of directors once a month. Or I'm going to have to stand up at some big employee meeting and talk to all these people, or I'm going to have to talk to my team. Then if you resolve that fear of public speaking, of interacting with people in that circumstance, now the subconscious mind has no more reason to protect you from something that is no longer a threat. Hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Thank you, Legal Eagle. Doreen. Doreen is a regular, as is Legal Eagle. Wow, Angel, I too had to learn that keeping myself first was not selfish. It is self-love and self-care. Okay, so one of the things that some of you may know about me, many may not, is that since 2003, I have been a volunteer firefighter and EMT, both in Connecticut and in the state of New York. Even though right now I'm kind of on a leave of absence, I'm not sure I'm going back to it. I'm not sure if it makes sense to go into buildings that are on fire with air packs on at my age and so forth. Anyway, one of the things that gets drilled into us over and over again as first responders is that your first responsibility at a motor vehicle accident, at a hazardous waste release, at a structure fire, your first responsibility is to who? Yourself. Second responsibility, fellow firefighter. Third responsibility, bystander. Fourth responsibility, mind you, victim inside burning building. Why? Because if as a first responder, I do something impulsive, I do something foolish and I get hurt, I have now compounded the problem. It's not anymore about one person down or two people down in a motor vehicle accident or a person inside a burning building. They now have to deal with me. I'm now a problem. If a fellow firefighter gets injured, same thing. And plus, it's one less resource that can actually solve the problem, and now more resources are needed to help us. If a bystander, same thing. So yes, the first thing you have to do before you can be of service to anyone else is you have to take care of yourself. They say to us, we don't want you showing up if you've got a sprained ankle. We don't want you showing up if you've got a head cold or a flu. We don't want you showing up if you've had a couple of beers. You're useless. Don't come. And it's a harsh way of saying things, but it actually, as you hear this over and over again, and you see what it's like to be on these scenes, it's 100% true. And I think that wisdom applies to normal everyday life. That you are of no service to your spouse or significant other, or to your children, or to your employer, or to your employees, or to the world in general if you haven't taken care of yourself first. Now, that isn't to say you have to be perfect. No, you don't. No one's going to be perfect. I'm not. You're not either. But to have the basics taken care of, right? That you have enough sleep, you have enough rest, you have time to play. You have enough resources to do the things that you need to do, and you're taking care of the other things you need to take care of, not just sacrificing everything on the altar of your children or on the altar of your job or whatever else. So that's a really, really, really good point, and I'm super glad you made it. And that kind of leads me into something I've said before, but I'd like to say it again, which is I think that the way of solving these pernicious, long-standing weight issues is to first and foremost create your foundation of change with compassion. Compassion for yourself. You didn't become this way because you wanted to, consciously. Your subconscious mind was probably doing it to protect you. And when you look in the mirror, you can see ugliness. You can see heavy. You can see fat. You can see all those things. But you can also see instead, and this is what I'm inviting you to consider, you can see beauty. You can see love. You can see magnificence. Because it doesn't matter what your body looks like, you still have a spirit or a soul that is magnificent. You still are powered by, fueled by love. And that's the part of you that's going to bring you home. It's not going to be the part of you that is the critic, that's calling you nasty names. That is not going to bring you home. And I already demonstrated how when that happens, you're dumping cortisol into your bloodstream. That right away is not serving you. So consider starting all of this with compassion. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, so here's AW. Anita's talking about having a strange experience with a pendulum. Let's see what she says. I used a pendulum once and something really strange happened. I told it to move very fast with my mind, and it started swinging back and forth so fast. Then I told it to slow right down, and I'm going to say, and it did. Yeah, okay. So the pendulum, so think of the part of you that that when you have an important decision to make, people will say, what does your heart tell you? What does your gut tell you? What does your intuition tell you? Think of when people say, sleep on it to get the answer to the question that you really need to get. The pendulum, if you just sit back from it and you just look at it and you say, show me yes, show me no, that pendulum will begin to move. That movement is being caused by your nervous system, micro movements in all of your muscles and in your nerves that are producing either, let's say, a forward and back motion, a side to side motion, a clockwise motion, a counterclockwise motion, and so forth. So if you stay out of it in a way, and you're not trying to make it move in a certain direction, you're just saying, give me an answer. The pendulum will give you an answer. It will move in a direction, often in ways you didn't want or you weren't expecting. That's where the motion of the pendulum is really, really kind of persuasive to me. Now, can you sit there and say, I want this pendulum to move side to side, and imagine it moving side to side, and then it will move side to side? Yes. Why? Because the thought of an action produces an action. When you're driving your car and you're thinking, I need to turn right on Walnut Street, even before you can see it, that thought of the action is required before you can execute the turn to move your car right onto Walnut Street. So the thought of an action produces an action. When you're thinking, I want this pendulum to move in this direction, you're thinking of an action and you're seeing it mirrored or reproduced through your nervous system in the pendulum. Now, if you're looking for answers, because you really don't know whether the answer is yes or no, for example, you just want to mentally stay out of it. You want to look at that pendulum and just say, show me the answer, show me yes. I just want to see, the pendulum move to yes. Now, when you know what yes is, and you ask a question like, is it in my highest and best interest to eat Twinkies? You don't have to say, I want to see a no motion. You can just sit back and you'll probably see it move in a no direction. If you see it move in a yes direction, it might be because your subconscious mind is trying to protect you. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Dara. Hello, Dara. Peter, does fear only mask anger? Does fear mask anger? Let me say it this way. It is my belief that anger is a defensive response to the fear that something valuable has been taken from you or will be taken from you. So all kinds of things of value can be taken from us, or things that we perceive to be of value. So our possessions, our significant other, our children, our life, our home, our time, our credibility, our respect, all sorts of things can be taken from us, right? And when one of those things that we value is threatened, either it has already been taken or it's threatened to be taken, that's when I say anger is a defensive response against that fear that something of value will be taken from us. I think that this is valuable sometimes because you can look and say, what is my relationship to fear? Knowing that every time you go into a state, what is my relationship to anger? Knowing that every time you go into this state of anger, you're moving into a stress response, dumping that cortisol into your bloodstream, making the weight problem worse. And then you can ask, is that really threatening something of value to me? So another client that I met with today was talking about how every time she meets with a particular person who works for her, she gets really angry. Why? Because as you dig deeper into this puzzle, you find out that that person holds the key to the whole business. If that person goes away, the investors go away, the business goes away. And so for her, there's an intense fear that that person is going to take something of value from her. What? Her whole business. And so that's what's driving the anger. Just understanding that and why it's there can help you resolve the anger. So thanks for that, Dara. Let's see what we got here. All right, so here's Kay talking about a pendulum. So let's jump into that. I tried a pendulum and it said my weight is not related to a past life. I think it has to do with me not feeling worthy, even though I have a strong feeling of self-worth in all other areas of my life. Okay, so the simple way to do this is to go back to the pendulum and say, ask the question that should be a yes, was my weight gain created, was the origin of my weight gain created at an earlier point in my present life? You should get a yes to that. The next thing I would do is want to nail down when. Did it happen before the age of 20? Yes or no? If you get a no, check after 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40. Find the age at which this was created. Then ask, was it something that involved a relationship? In other words, a relationship with a friend, a significant other, a family member. And in this way, narrow it down, get to that exact moment using the pendulum at which this paradigm of your body, your subconscious mind, deciding that it's better for you to have this extra weight. And then you might be able to remember exactly what that incident is if you know when it happened, the person that was involved. If you don't, keep asking questions. Did I become estranged from someone? Did someone criticize me? Did I criticize them? Did it create guilt? Did it create shame? And really use that pendulum to absolutely pinpoint when that was created. Once you know exactly what created it, you will probably know how to resolve it. I talked a little bit before about that, about sort of in your mind, going back in time to that originating event, like taking your present day self back to that younger you, the present you that knows more, that has more experience than the younger you, and helping them to resolve it in the moment. May involve forgiveness and other things. The next piece of this would be, if you find out through using the pendulum that this does have to do with self-worth, or a lack of self-love, or a lack of self-esteem, you would want to flood your unconscious mind with the words and the thoughts and the feelings of high self-worth, of high self-esteem, of high self-worth. Does that make sense? So if you say you've got something written on a blackboard, it says, I'm no good. The first step where you're resolving that old issue is you're finding the moment at which that phrase, I'm no good, was written on the blackboard. It's going to be some kind of trauma. And you're taking your eraser and you're erasing those words. You're creating a blank slate for yourself. Step number 2 is you're now writing new words on there like, I am love. I am lovable. I am joyful. I am smart, I am beautiful, I am kind, I am magnificent, I am gracious. All of those things. That would be the listening, right, to different kinds of tracks that are available on my YouTube site, and flooding your mind with those opposite thoughts that go into your mind. Now, if you don't have the obstacle of the old thing, I am no good, which was written on the blackboard, if that's gone, you've got like a beautiful patch of fertile soil. And you take those new words that produce emotions, ideas, and over time, beliefs, all the positive stuff, and you spread those on the soil by listening to these tracks, right, of all of these very loving and empowering thoughts. And over time, those new ones start to take hold, just like seeds in the soil will take hold. And you never really want to stop this. It's like saying, you got your body to a certain point by going to the gym for a month and now you never have to look at a weight again. No, that's not how it works. You don't have to do it as often, but you might want to do some kind of reinforcement where you have some kind of daily practice. The practice could be 10 minutes, 15 minutes, where you're reinforcing this specific thing for you, which let's just say is self-love. Every day, 15 minutes, you're just going to fill your mind with those things and then go off and start your day. So hopefully that helped, and thanks for commenting. Let's see. Here, Christine Calliston. I am my own worst critic, tired of beating myself up, now learning that I'm capable of self-understanding and kindness. Absolutely. That deserves a round of applause. Yeah? Okay. You are your most powerful hypnotist. That inner critic, that inner voice, whether it's saying kind things or it's saying unkind things, is going all the time. And maybe you took on that voice from someone else earlier in your life. Maybe it came from somewhere else. But it's time for all of us to be mindful of what that voice is saying, because you're only aware of the tip of the iceberg. You have 20 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and you're aware of about 3% of those thoughts. So for every one nasty thought that you are aware of rolling around in your mind, how many more are in there behind it that are reinforcing that old way of being? So part of this is having that awareness that when the thought comes into your mind, just take a moment, just stop. And just imagine you're just ignoring that old one and you're pulling the new one in your mind. You can even repeat it inside of your mind a few times. And over time, this will begin to become the dominating thoughts in your mind. In addition, you're going to listen, right, to overnight sleep tracks. So while you're sleeping, you're receiving all of this positive programming that's coming into your mind. You can do it with some of the tracks while you're working. You can do it, some of the tracks are shorter. They're an hour, they're 20 minutes, they're 40 minutes. You know, go through this library of content I have on my YouTube channel and start programming yourself for the outcome that you want, for the thoughts that you want in your mind. Because the software in your mind is governing the behavior of the hardware of your body. And if you haven't already done it, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Pop that right up there, the little please subscribe thing. I'll now be in your feed if you subscribe to my channel. And every time I produce new content, you'll be more likely to be alerted of that content. If you also click the bell notification icon, you will definitely be alerted every time I produce new content. Now, last week, I promised people that if they sent me an email and said, hey, I want a free MP3 of that track that you're producing, you know, they did, and I got a number of people that did that. So for you people, if you're on this call today, I think Dara, you were one of them. I just completed that. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube probably tonight, tomorrow, but I will send you that MP3 that I talked about sometime in the next 48 hours. That one is, I am worthy of love. 8 hours, set to rain, you just go to sleep. Press play on a speaker somewhere in your room, in your bedroom. And while you sleep, all you can consciously hear is the sound of rain. However, your subconscious mind will draw in the subliminal or subaudible suggestions and affirmations, which is 100 different ways of, I love myself and I am worthy of that love. I'm worthy of receiving love. I'm worthy of a beautiful life. So that's one example, this thing that I'm about to publish that can help you radically change the software that's running your life that's in your subconscious mind. Okay, see what else we got here and how we doing. Okay. Shannon Marie, don't recognize your name, so popping you up here. I'm so glad you're taking on this topic today because I've been playing the subliminal sleep hypnosis videos every night while I sleep and nothing seems to have changed. What am I doing wrong? Okay, great point. The first thing I would suggest is, in addition, and first of all, I'd want to know how long you've been doing that. I don't know if you put it in there, but I don't think I saw the amount of time. Give it at least a month. The second thing that you could do is you could switch the subliminal track, right? You could switch it to an audible track. So many of the ones I have subliminal, I also have as audible, where I'm speaking, you can hear what I'm saying, but my voice is very low. Now, if you're able to sleep with the audible one, that for you might work better than the subliminal one. You can also try doing an audible sort of more classic self-hypnosis during the day. I've got a 20-minute track. There's one on there called, it's a dual track. In other words, different suggestions come in the left ear, then come in the right ear. You're guided into hypnosis. It's all audible. And then you're wearing headphones. And then about 9 minutes in, you start getting flooded. Left ear, one set, right ear, another set. And that goes on. That one for you, different tracks for different people. Some work better, some don't work as well. So try some of these other tracks and see how that goes. The next thing I would say, if that's an issue, is that your subconscious mind may have a more powerful reason for you to hold on to that weight than you consciously have for wanting to reduce that weight. So if what I said before is true, that the subconscious mind is trying to protect you, and it has a compelling reason for you to hold on to that additional weight, then almost nothing you do would work long term until you solve that deeper problem. So the other thing I would suggest to you is go watch that video on the pendulum. Go to my channel, type in pendulum, and watch how to use that pendulum if you don't already know how to do it. And see if you can find out, is there an obstacle to me losing additional weight beyond where I am right now? So let's say you're, I don't know, let's just use a number, 140 pounds. And you want to be 125 pounds or something, just making this up. Is there an obstacle to me losing, for me to become 125 pounds? If you get a yes to that, we would want you to pinpoint what that obstacle is. It's probably going to be something protective in nature. And in that case, we would have to deal with that obstacle before we could expect that those tracks are going to succeed for you, especially succeed for you in the long run. So thanks for bringing that up. It really helps with being able to describe this. So thank you. Let's see how. Okay, so Shannon Marie is also saying, I feel so blocked, guys. What do I need to do to unblock myself? So hopefully what I just said is going to help you. Try some different tracks, do the audible one during the day, and then use the pendulum to find out, do you have a block to losing weight? And if so, where and when was that block created? Was it created in a past lifetime, or was it created earlier in your present life? Was there a trauma involved? What kind of trauma was it? The more information that we can get, the more clearly we can begin to go right at that thing, whatever it is that's blocking you, and then the track should start to work much more effectively. I mean, this is really like that gardening example I gave you before, that if you and I wanted to plant a garden in a parking lot, we could throw the seeds down on the asphalt. It's not going to be very successful, because the asphalt is providing an obstacle to successfully growing a garden. The really hard work would be taking sledgehammers out there and breaking up the asphalt and carting away all of those pieces of asphalt to reveal the dirt, then tilling the dirt, right? Once we did that, now if we put down the seeds, which is like listening to those tracks overnight, for example, now putting down those seeds, they're going to find rich, fertile soil, and lots of them are going to germinate and turn into plants. And then if we keep watering it and weeding it, that's like your daily practice, those plants are going to grow into really healthy plants, and they're going to bear fruit. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Vice Forever. I am blocked because I'm scared I'm scared I'll become a monster if I'm thin. Is that weird? So weird just to me just means different or unusual. So this is definitely different and unusual, but for someone like me, it's not out of left field, not at all. There must be a moment in time at which your mind took on the belief that if you're thin, when you say you'll become a monster, what I'm assuming that means is that you'll become a person that will repel other people, or you'll become a person that will scare other people, or you'll become a person that will harm other people. So if everything I'm saying is correct, and I'm not sure it is because I've got a sentence to go on here, but if that's correct, then what if in a past lifetime you were a monster, you did hurt people in that past lifetime? And let's say, what if in that past lifetime you were super thin? It's not a stretch to think that your subconscious mind could put those two things together and just say, hey, the last time you were thin, you were a monster, you hurt all these people. So we can't let you become thin again because we're equating that with that behavior. Does that make sense? I know it's a little off the wall, but that's how the subconscious mind can actually work. It's an associating, making mechanism, right? If you got into a horrible car accident in a red car, say a red sports car, you could get into a red pickup truck and your mind could produce these feelings of anxiety inside of you, whereas if you got into a blue pickup truck, it wouldn't cause the same problem, because it associates the color red with this horrible accident and almost losing your life. So I hope that makes sense to you. And again, I would actually direct you to the pendulum and say, where was this fear of becoming a monster if I lose weight and become thin? When was that created? The other thing that I would like to say, so I talked about how the subconscious mind wants to protect you. I showed that the guy in the armor. Well, there's a couple of other things to consider too. One of them is the herd, the concept of the herd. When we become injured or frightened, we are hardwired, like other pack or herd animals, to seek out other people, to seek out the herd, to stand in the middle of all these other people because that's where safety is. Now, if you really think about this, and hat tip to Jason Christoff, somebody I found on Facebook who has got some really great ways of thinking about things. He is the one that, through listening to his podcast, got me thinking about this. That when you're scared, you're hardwired to go toward the herd because that's where safety is. All right, well, what if your herd, what if the norm are lots and lots of heavy people? I mean, it's the preponderance of people in our culture now. To be thin, to be fit and healthy, in a way, is to stand alone and not be with the herd. And at times when you feel unsure, or you feel anxious, or you feel depressed, or you feel lonely, or you feel scared, or you feel ashamed, or you feel guilty, the hardwiring is going to want to bring you back to the herd, where the subconscious mind might be saying, it's not safe for you to be by yourself over in that fit, healthy body. Pack on 40 pounds and fit in like everyone else. Now, one of the ways of relating to this in your own life is, have you ever been at, I don't know, like a black tie event and you weren't wearing the gown, or you weren't wearing the tuxedo? You had something else on? You know, or have you ever been somewhere where everybody's all dressed up, they're you know, dresses and suits and ties and everything, and you wander in wearing shorts and a t-shirt? You're gonna feel pretty weird. You're gonna feel pretty uncomfortable, generally speaking. I mean, maybe you're a person that doesn't, but most people are gonna feel totally out of place, totally, you know, dressed and feeling the wrong way. Because why? You don't fit in. You know, we like to think that we're all unique, we're all special and individuals, and to a degree we are. But we have a much more powerful need to fit in than you might otherwise suspect. You know, when I was thinking about this concept earlier today, I was thinking, all right, so I remember in the 1970s that you know, people wore bell-bottom jeans. Nobody wears those now. If you walked around in bell-bottom jeans, you might feel a little like you were sticking out like a sore thumb. You know, men had really long hair. Then it gets short. Then it gets medium. Then it gets really long. Men wore leisure suits, polyester leisure suits in the 70s. You don't see many of those around now. You know, and in the 70s, when I was growing up, a tattoo was something that you know, prostitutes had tattoos, and sailors had tattoos, and construction workers had tattoos. Nobody else had them. Now everybody has them. And so to get a tattoo now is, in some ways, is like fitting in with the herd. See, I got my tats. So we have a powerful need to fit in. And it could be that your powerful need to fit in with your family, to fit in with your friends, to fit in with your significant other, to fit in with your coworkers, to fit in with your demographic and your age group, might be to be heavy. I mean, scientifically, your friend group is heavily, I'm sorry I said that, I didn't mean to, heavily correlated with your weight. And I'm not saying you just like rule out having heavy friends, no. But when you understand this concept, that it's fear that causes us many times to want to fit in like that, that can be the first step towards breaking that pattern. Realizing I can still love these people and they can still love me, and I don't have to look just like them because we share something else on a deeper level. So that concept of the herd, really important. And a sort of micro version of that would be if you had a beloved, say a beloved grandmother, and she was heavy, and she has passed away, and she liked to eat, you know, rich, hearty food. Well, every time you eat that rich, hearty food, part of your subconscious mind may be getting a little cuddle, a little stroke, like I feel like I'm with grandma again. And so it could also be identifying with her. You know, that when you look in the mirror, you might not like what you see, but part of you might feel on a subconscious level like you're connected with her. And so with a lot of the clients I work with, when that's the case, and it happens a lot, what we do is in hypnosis, we bring in the two people, you know, your present day self and your grandma who has deceased. And these are usually like really emotional meetings where these people are able to embrace each other and tell each other they love each other, and there are tears coming down the eyes of the client. And we have the client envision a connection or a cord between the client and grandma based around eating those kinds of foods, based around being physically heavy. Then we have grandma and the client decide on a new way to connect to each other. It could be a sense of humor, it could be a love of gardening, it could be a love of the outdoors, it could be a love of dogs, it doesn't matter. Once we have that new connection, we have them envision connecting a new cord, thicker in diameter, shinier, between the two of them that's now based on their love of dogs. Then we have the client ask grandma for her permission to disconnect the old cord that's based upon heavy, fattening foods and being physically heavy, and then they both toss that into a fire together. So they still have their connection, right? You don't want to take away that. You can't really do that. You still have the connection, but now the connection is based on something else. Now we've moved another potential obstacle out of the way. So when the seeds, the flooding your subconscious mind, like through listening to the night tracks or listening to the daytime tracks, flooding your mind with the new things, the seeds are going to touch fertile soil and be much more likely to germinate and grow into something powerful and beautiful. All right, so let's see here. I also, on this herd one, I also talked about energy. Now, I'm not much of a mathematician or a physicist, but there are certain things that are kind of super interesting when you look into them, even from a spiritual perspective. And one of the things that they talk about in physics is the law of the conservation of energy. So apparently for most animals, and we are an animal, burning fewer calories and consuming more is a healthy survival strategy. You know, if you were lost in the woods and you had a survival knife and you had some matches, a good strategy for you, if you didn't know how long you were going to be out there, would be to conserve your energy, to not burn calories, and to find as many calories as you could and consume those. And with losing weight, obviously, it's the opposite. So if you go back to this concept that your subconscious mind is trying to protect you, and then you think of this survival strategy, it all starts coming together. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. All right, boom, gone with that. And then the other one I made, this sort of magnifying glass, this is just an illustration of how important it is to find the origin of where this condition was created for the first time. In other words, let me find out, is there an obstacle? And if so, when and where was the obstacle created, under what circumstances? And that will help you understand what you need to do to resolve it. All right, let's see what else we have here. Vika forever. I live in the South where food is used as a comfort tool for sure. For celebration, for funerals, it's hardwired for us to turn to food. Majority of my memories are around food. Yes, okay, this is an awesome point. Vice. Oh, it's not Vika, it's Vice. Sorry about that. This is an awesome point. So many of you have probably heard about a Pavlovian response. Very quickly, there was a Russian scientist, Ivan Pavlov, who conditioned a dog over time that every time he rang a bell, he would give the dog meat powder. At a certain point, he didn't have to give the dog meat powder anymore. All he had to do was ring the bell and the dog would salivate. So many of us have established, like Vice is talking about, a conditioned Pavlovian response to certain things. Like, I'm in the South, it's a funeral, of course we're going to eat, and we're going to eat this kind of food. We go to the fair, oh, well, we always have, deep fried Twinkies at the fair, blah, 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 blah. So part of this is to recondition yourself to something else. So part of the programming on these hypnosis tracks, on some of the hypnosis tracks, is to reprogram what pleasure means. So pleasure literally could be you're drinking cool, crisp water in abundance. that could get wired in your mind as something super pleasurable. And if you read through the comments on a lot of my videos, you'll read some of the people, not lots of them, but some of the people will say, gosh, I now feel like I just want to drink water all the time. Why is that? Because it was programmed on there. Because now it is perceived as something that is pleasurable to people. If you go watch a stage hypnosis show, in some cases the stage hypnotist will have people biting into an onion and programming them that it's an apple. And the person doesn't get this awful look on their face. They just bite into this onion and they feel like they're biting into an apple. You can rewire certain things so that it means something different. So thank you for that point. I'll take one or two more, and then we'll call it a day for today. And before we take one or two more, what I'd like to do is talk about, there we go, what we're going to deal with next week. Here it is. So next week, live at 5, we're going to be talking about releasing spiritual attachments. So this gets into the esoteric side of the work that I do. Now, a spiritual attachment is, this is the way I think of it anyway, is that we all have, there's two parts of us. Well, there's a conscious mind and subconscious, but there's also a spirit, some people would call it a soul, and a physical body. When the physical body goes away, that's called death, you still have your spirit, which is eternal. It never dies. Now, some people, for whatever reason, and we'll talk about this next week, don't want to go where they're supposed to go next. They stay here. And in order to have kind of a human experience or a facsimile of a human experience, they can attach onto someone else, onto the energy of someone else. So kind of like a physical parasite can attach onto you if you eat food that isn't cooked well. A non-physical parasite, an energetic parasite, can attach onto you energetically, affect your thoughts and your emotions. And we're going to talk about that whole concept and how to offload them, how to release them next Friday on the Friday Live at 5 Eastern. So let me take one or two more and then we'll call it a day. And before that, just thank you so much for all of the questions. I know I can't get to all of them, but I'm trying to have a blend between people that I recognize their names because I love that you're coming back, and new people to encourage you folks to interact with this program as well. Here's Dara O'Sullivan. Peter, is there a subject matter with overruling making mistakes? Energy transfer happens, and from a spiritual perspective, is there a quick NLP we can do to turn the next event in our favor? It's a subject matter of which you're ruling making mistakes. Energy transfer happens. Okay, so I'm probably gonna butcher what you mean by this, but I'm gonna take a crack at it. Okay, so the client said this to me earlier today. Every time I go into this employee, he explodes, he's foaming at the mouth, we had this horrible experience. What do I do about that? So there's a bunch of different ways of answering that question, and I'm not going to belabor all of them, but I'm going to try to talk about what I think you're asking, and that is, for her, it was an NLP thing, and that is, you need to break the pattern. So when you have a problem with this person, it probably enacts itself in roughly the same way every time. You walk away feeling the same way, he walks away feeling the same way, and you're ready just to do it again, to rinse and repeat. So in order to have a different outcome, you have to break the pattern by doing things differently. Now, there is literally something in NLP called a pattern break. And the famous example they use is that let's say you're a salesperson and you're talking to the client or to 3 or 4 clients, or let's say they're prospects, they haven't even bought yet. And the conversation is going in a really negative way, and it's not going to end well. You want to break the pattern. And the famous NLP way of breaking the pattern is you kind of say to everybody, do you smell popcorn? And everybody kind of stops and they sort of look around and they're sniffing and they go, no, I don't smell any popcorn. Like, oh, that's funny, I thought I smelled popcorn. Anyway, we were talking about this thing before. Well, when you go back to it, that freight train that was rolling with a particular emotion going in a particular direction now has been broken, if you will. That momentum, if you will, has changed. So there are ways of using pattern breaks in your own life for yourself, pattern breaks with your family members, with your friends, with the people with whom you work. And again, I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but I'm going to take a crack at it. So one of the things in our family we've talked about as a pattern break is diving into a swimming pool. Now, I'm not saying everyone has a swimming pool, and around here you can only swim in it like 3 months out of the year anyway. But I'm just using it to illustrate that you could be hot, kind of irritated, upset, whatever, tired. You dive into that pool, and within seconds, it's like a total attitude adjustment. You know, there's something about that cold water hitting your whole body at once that puts you into a different emotional state. Music can often put people into different emotional states, and retailers use this liberally. You know, you walk into a mall, you walk into a boutique, a store of some kind, and they have certain kinds of music playing. Many of them will even have certain scents, S-C-E-N-T-S, things that you smell, because all of these things can shift your mood. And once your mood shifts, your thoughts and your thinking starts to shift. So, one of the things that I suggest to my clients around weight gain, weight loss, especially with around binge eating, which seems to happen for a lot of people in the evening. Like they're really good in the morning, they're really good in the afternoon, they get home, they have dinner, and then they start watching TV and boom, there's this like danger time right before they go to bed. Is I say to them, make a deal with yourself. Say to yourself, I'm going to listen to this 20-minute dual track weight loss hypnosis, 20 minutes. And if at the end of that 20 minutes I still feel like I want to binge on the ice cream, go for it. But what's probably going to happen is that by listening to that 20 minutes, they're going to emerge in a different emotional, psycho-emotional state. And they're going to look at that thing that they were going to binge on, and the pattern has been broken. And by breaking the pattern, it's very likely that they're not going to feel like eating that thing now, that they're going to be able to just move into the next aspect of their life. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody, and hopefully that concept of pattern breaks is something that you might even be able to take into your own life. So thank you, everyone. Well, let's see, one more. Vice, let's see, I'm so excited, just came across this today. I have a deep feeling it's going to change my life. Awesome. Congratulations to you, Vice. And Gia Girl is talking about my genetics. Okay, all right, so I'm going to do a whole program on this one, but I want to give you a little teaser because it's not even on my list. This is an example of you putting that comment up here, puts it in my mind, answer this question, and then put it on the list to be dealt with in the future. According to Harvard Medical School, you can change your genetic expression by using hypnosis. What this means is that your genes have two modes. They can be in the on position, like a light, or they can be in off position, also called upregulated, downregulated. If you have a gene for something nasty, and it's in the off or downregulated position, that nasty thing does not express itself. You still have the gene floating around. You still inherited it, you still have it, but it never expresses. It never comes into a physical reality because it was always in the off or down-regulated position. Stress tends to activate, turn on, upregulate the nasty genes. Relaxation, calm, peace, forgiveness, tranquility, meditation, hypnosis, qigong, tai chi, blah, 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 tend to upregulate the good genes and downregulate the bad genes. So you, Gia Girl, and everyone else in this broadcast can learn how to change your genetic expression. I will do a whole Friday Live at 5 on this topic because it is absolutely fascinating. And I pretty much can guarantee you that your primary care physician doesn't know anything about this. And again, it's not coming from Podunk University, it's coming from Harvard Medical School. So thank you for that comment. Thank you for all of you who commented today, who asked questions, who attended. I see a lot of you are supporting each other, which I love. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel on YouTube. Click the bell notification icon. And also, if you subscribe to my private mailing list, you'll get stuff in my mailing list that you won't always see on my YouTube channel, and it's a better way for us to stay in touch. So I hope you guys have an awesome weekend, and we will see you next Friday for the Live at 5 Eastern for Releasing Spiritual Attachments. Take care. See you then. Bye.